one of the biggest questions that I often hear or look at on the net, when it comes to Twitter or Instagram, I don't really do too much Instagram or even YouTube, is how much studying, specifically as a new day trader, right? A person who's just kind of getting started and, getting their feet wet and I guess you could say learning about charts, learning about indicators, learning about just their style of how to be successful in the market. How much studying should you do? And the question is, or the answer that I would say is that, it's very simple. How much studying do you think that you need? Are you losing in the market? What are you losing at? Where do you see, identify your weaknesses? Where do you identify your strengths? How can you make your strengths even stronger, right? It's just like working out. Let's just kind of relate this to sports, right? If you play basketball, there's so many different areas in the game of basketball, right? As you guys know, it comes down to dribbling, it comes down to shooting, it comes down to defense, it comes down to, your IQ when it comes to defense, passing the ball, being a team player. There's so many different scenarios when it comes to trying to be a good basketball player. And you'll ask yourself, well, how much practice do I need in order to be a good basketball player? Are you good? Where do you suck at? Where are you good at? Do you know how to shoot the ball? Do you know how to, you can break that idea of the game of basketball down into millions of different pieces in order for you to be a good, successful basketball player. So it's the same thing with stocks. In order for you to be successful, where are you struggling at? Is it the time frame? Is it the particular stocks that you're trading? Some people may jump into PDD or Amazon or Microsoft or even IWM. The thing is that each and every one of those companies and securities, they move completely different from the next one. Versus if you look at SPY and NASDAQ and SPX, they all tend to have a good flow of how they move and how they interact with one another. And of course there's big money being poured into these particular securities day in and day out. So the goal is, in order to be good, you have to identify your weaknesses. You have to identify your strengths. Even if you're good in a particular area, you want to continue to keep leveling up that particular area. If you suck at a particular area, you got to level up that particular area in order to be in relation to, like I said before, the basketball idea. Are you trying to be a scalper? Are you trying to be a swing trader? Are you trying to be a day trader? Are you trying to be a long-term investor? Are you trying to dollar cost average? There's so many different scenarios that you can tack on to try to be a good investor, ideally. Now, of course, there's a million ways to skin that cat, right? When Kawhi Leonard first got into the NBA, his whole thing was defense, right? Everybody loved Kawhi Leonard for defense and having big hands, and to defend LeBron James. And then slowly but surely in his career, he became very good at offense, or I guess you could say more teams leaned more towards him when it came to him being a true factor on the offensive ball. It didn't happen overnight. He was always good. I'm not going to sit here and say Kawhi Leonard was never a good offensive player to begin with. No, he was always good, but more teams, specifically San Antonio Spurs, they relied more on him when it came to his defensive side. Offense, he gets buckets when he needs to. When he went over to Toronto Raptors, he became more of an offensive key player that Toronto wanted. So when you take that particular scenario, you put yourself in those same shoes. You say, well, what kind of player do I want to be in this market? Do I want to scout? Do I want to day trade? Do I want to swing trade? What I find is that whichever one that you want to be, I would always advise to pick one. If you want to be a scalper, be a scalper. If you want to be a day trader, be a day trader. Day trader is that you're trying to look for the move for the day, right? It's somewhat similar to a scalper. A scalper can be a little bit more tedious, right? So if it moves up a couple of percent, 5-10%, that's all I need for the day. Oh, let me get that. Swing trader, whichever player that you're trying to be in the market, you want to identify it. And in my opinion, you would want to stick to who you're trying to be. Develop in that particular area first, become king at it, become queen at it. And once you've built your reputation, your consistency in that particular area, then you can kind of move on and say, okay, well, instead of being a scalper, let me look for something a little bit more bigger, a little bit more long term. Then you can kind of move along with your education and your skills and your knowledge. And it's good, baby steps is always good. Now, to say, swing trading, I wouldn't consider that to be a baby step, is because swing trading, there's so many different scenarios that happen within a week's time. A contract can be up for the day, and then it can be up for the next day, and then you're thinking everything is all fine and dandy, and then the Fed comes out and says something wacky, and then just completely destroys the entire contract, and which will force you to lose confidence on the direction of where you think the stock is going to go. So baby steps is always good for everyone. You don't have to just completely take a complete leap over, the basics. I think that nobody should want to skip over the basics, because there's a lot that comes with the basics, learning how to dribble. When I first played basketball, as you guys know, or you guys don't know that I play basketball, but when you first play basketball, the first steps are what? Learning how to shoot, or mainly, let's take it a step back, learning how to dribble the ball, right? Don't double dribble. And if you suck, what? The big kids always do what? They call, hey, that's travel. Hey, that's double dribble. Well, in the market, it's, hey, give me your rent money. Hey, give me your mortgage. Hey, give me your car note. That's the reality when you're playing this particular game. You know what I mean? It's the same fundamental basics. If you don't, you start baby steps. Learn how to dribble. Learn how to scalp. Master that concept first. Learn how to scalp. Learn how to dribble. Learning how to shoot. Learning how to shoot would be, hey, take profit. If you see $100 that hits your account, take profit. If somebody gave you $100 right now, would you take the $100, or would you just leave the $100 on the table? So learn how to take money. That's one of the basics. That's one of my rules, is profit, make money. Another one is that, win or beat the week, beat the month, or to keep it simple, learn how to beat the day, right? A lot of traders tend to overtrade when they're starting off, but it just goes back to the concept. How much do you need to study? What do you need to study? When you figure out all those different scenarios of what comes with studying and learning how to be a good trader, and again, this is not an overnight thing, as well. Trading is something that you're doing as a career. A career is something, there are people who, this is very interesting. There are people who in this world, Japan and a lot of the Asian cultures, where they spend a lifetime learning how to perfect the art of making sushi or tea or noodles or any other type of tedious item that you can think about. And you say, well, why would somebody spend all their life learning how to perfect the idea of making sushi or making tea? It should be simple, right? If you're making tea, water, lemon, sugar, honey, drink it, I feel good. Well, there are people in our world where they spend a lifetime perfecting the art of the most tedious things. And it's the same thing for stocks, investing. This is a hard thing to do. It can be hard, very, very hard. And, you don't want to compare yourself to people. That's another story in itself. You don't want to compare yourself to other investors based off of what he and she is doing. You want to focus on, you want to maybe take some of the recipes that other people are doing, even myself, but you want to make your own sauce. You know what I mean? And I'll say that one time. You don't want to simply just blatantly copy, but you want to take certain spices, certain seasonings from everybody that you see in the market, and you want to take a little bit here and there, but you ultimately want to create your own sauce. What is the perfect way for Johnny, Bill, Antonio? What is the perfect way for you to trade, and what makes sense for you? You can take other people's sauces, buying other people's courses, and etc. and so forth, joining discords or whatever. But ultimately, it comes down to what you see and how you see it, right? How do you interpret information? It's just like the Bible, right? There's millions of people that can read the Bible, but everybody interprets that information completely different. And however you interpret it, the goal ultimately is to simply win, to make money, to make your life and your family's life a whole lot better. But yeah, ultimately, that's one question that can literally take anybody down the rabbit hole, because there's so many different scenarios that come with, how much do I need to study? What's the bar? What's the limit? And I would say, don't give yourself a limit, run wild, get it to where you've studied so much to where, you've peaked, and you've peaked, and because you've studied so much different scenarios that, now it makes sense, but ultimately you're seeing results when you are day trading, swing trading, investing, or doing whatever core that you're trying to do. So hopefully that makes sense. Definitely like, comment, subscribe if it helped you out in any kind of way, and follow for more.